Good afternoon, everybody. Shavua Tov. It's a new week and it's a new Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land with me, Raylene Marks, your host, bringing you the top stories from Israel and surrounds every Monday to Thursday, right here in this platform. And if you don't want to watch us here, no worries. We've got you covered on YouTube as well. You can find us at the Israel Brief, and all you have to do is click on the red subscribe button, and every time we post news updates, you will receive an alert. But let's get into the day's top stories right here from our lockdown location in Modi'in, right in between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And we start with the top story, which is, of course, lockdown. Yesterday at 5 p.m., Israel entered its third lockdown, our third national lockdown, which will restrict commercial activities and people's movements, at least for the next 2 weeks. This is pipped to maybe go on longer. At the moment, schools remain open, much to the consternation of certain members of the health ministry, but this was the agreement that was reached in order to maintain a lockdown, was still allowing for young people to go to school and have some semblance of a routine. However, along with the lockdown goes the vaccination rollout, and to date Israel has vaccinated nearly 400,000 citizens. Yesterday, an estimated 100,000 people received their vaccines, and at the moment Israel is vaccinating all healthcare professionals and anybody over the age of 60. And it is expected that within the next couple of days, an announcement will be made to open up vaccinations to all citizens, regardless of age. And there have been some reports that the government is even debating having a 24/7 vaccination rollout. And this comes at a time where Israel is leading in the world in the amount of vaccinations per capita. So we have moved from Startup Nation to Innovation Nation, and now we are Inoculation Nation. But that's not the only top story making headlines. Now we go to France, where the French daily Le Monde is reporting that there is a plan between the United Arab Emirates and the State of Israel to scupper UNRWA. Who are UNRWA, you ask? Well, they are an agency of the United Nations. In fact, UNRWA stands for United Nations Relief Works Agency, and what their mandate is to do is to look after Palestinian refugees. However, in a move that was quite controversial a couple of years ago, the Trump administration pulled America's funding out of UNRWA, and it looks like the UAE, who replaced the American funding, could be doing the same. They have now withdrawn a majority of their funding and only give a token amount. And according to the report, this is a plan between Israel and the UAE to unsettle or to end UNRWA, because they say that it perpetuates the situation or the agreement that there are Palestinian refugees, instead of looking for a solution to the problem. So it will be interesting to hear your thoughts, and you're welcome to post them in the comments section below this post. What do you think of UNRWA? Should more countries start pulling out? Do you think that it's a plot between the UAE and Israel to try and pull the funding so that the organization folds? You decide. However, according to this report, this seems to be on the case, and this perpetuates this never-ending cycle of poverty instead of finding solutions in terms of education, hospitals, etc. And we can't forget reports coming out of recent conflicts or flare-ups between Israel and Hamas, when there have been a significant amount of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip into Israel, that there were reports that the UNRWA facilities in terms of hospitals and schools were used by Hamas to store weapons, or to use the facilities as possible human shields. Very, very interesting story indeed, and one we're going to watch very, very closely. And our final story of the day stays with the human rights organizations, this time with the International Commission of the Red Cross, the branch that is active in Israel and the Palestinian territories. Yesterday, whoever it is took to social media, and I kid you not, you really can't make this stuff up, but they tweeted out a thread of tweets taking the television show Fauda, which is a massive Israeli hit and which ironically unites Arabs and Jews across the region who enjoy the show, who say that it is, quite true to life and that it humanizes both sides. Well, anyway, whoever's responsible for tweeting on behalf of the Red Cross took Fauda to task episode by episode for contravening international human rights law. Now, a lot of us looked at this and we thought, seriously, you can't make this stupid up. Or is this a parody? Or who is next? Will it be a Game of Thrones for the disproportionate use of dragons in a state of conflict? Will it be another spy, James Bond, taken to task? But although we jest, something like this is quite serious. First of all, this is an organization that has what we call a blue tick on Twitter, which means they are a reputable organization. They are also a human rights organization and one that many, many people take very, very seriously. And also, they operate in a region where often the first casualty of conflict is truth and facts. And this kind of tweeting where the facts are misrepresented perpetuates the online anti-Semitism that we see growing day by day, which is why even though some of us, including myself, were sarcastic in our responses to them, we still take this very, very seriously. And one wonders why the International Commission of the Red Cross operating in Israel and the territories is focusing on a fictional TV show and not on real problems like the returning of 2 civilians being held captive by Hamas to their families in Israel, or the bodies or the remains of 2 Israeli soldiers held by Hamas since the Operation Protective Edge in 2014 haven't been returned, or why there is continued rocket fire, which means reprisals, or the situation for Palestinians living under the Hamas regime who have their human rights eroded on a daily basis, or why there has been no statement from the Red Cross on the brutal murder of 52-year-old mother of 6 who was brutally slain last week, Esther Horgan. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And the remaining question is, why a fictional TV show? Anyway, again, we'd be very interested to hear what you have to say, and feel free to post in the comment section below. So those are the top stories for today from our lockdown location. But don't forget, you can check out our content online at www.layoftheland.online. Dave Kaplan shares his experience getting his vaccine, a very, very exciting moment indeed. It's also up on our Facebook page, and if you haven't already joined our growing community, please do so by liking us or following us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more of you who subscribe, the more it is easier for us to get news from Israel out to the masses. And if you want to join our activity on Twitter, we would love to see you there. And you can follow us at Lay of the Land 5. That's Lay of the Land with a digit 5. So from our lockdown location, because hey, where else are we going to be for the next 2 weeks? I'm Rolene Marks, wishing you a peaceful, a safe and healthy rest of the day, and we'll chat again tomorrow.